You will be caught, her voice warned. I was at the bar, enjoying a casual Friday night game with the girls. There were 5 of us. The 6th had already found her catch long before we arrived, a tall, blonde man radiating undeniable allure. We knew we wouldn't see her again until Monday morning at the office. As I turned slightly to my left, I noticed a striking and impeccably dressed woman. The first word that came to mind was elegance. Her black dress was alluring yet understated, and her jewelry, though clearly expensive, was tasteful rather than ostentatious. Her blonde hair was styled to frame her face perfectly, with a pixie cut that imbued her with a youthful aura. Despite her sophisticated appearance, I found it difficult to pinpoint her age. She didn't appear to have undergone any surgical enhancements, yet the laugh lines gracing her face suggested years of experience and wisdom. I could only dream of looking even half as good at her age, which I boldly guessed to be over 50. But what she wanted from me was still a mystery. I'm sorry. I did not hide the irritation in my voice. I said, "You're going to get caught. I've been watching your friends from the moment they walked in the door. Are you getting ready for the big night?" She answered. Yes, Wait, what? Are you watching us? And why are we getting caught? And who are you anyway? I was confused. She grinned. My name is Jessica, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You and your friends are going to a club, right? And you're here to get some food before it. I'm right? What's your name, honey? Charlotte. Are you psychic? Jessica laughed, giving her laughter a pleasant but slightly superior tone. No, not at all. Just someone who's been in your shoes or something before. The bartender placed my drink in front of me. A generous tip, as always on such evenings, was given to them. He had to put up with women like my friends all night, and he deserved it. I looked at Jessica as I took a sip. Although I was inclined to join my friends, this conversation was one of the most interesting I had had in a long time. Better than listening to Cynthia and Betty try and outdo each other. Oh, and where is it? She smiled, but it was more predatory than friendly. You are planning to cheat on your husband. No, how can you say that? I love my husband. I muttered. Jessica's smile became a little sadder, and her tone became calmer. I'm not judging you, Charlotte. I'm trying to help. And I didn't say you didn't love your husband. I believe you. So do I, but I still cheated on him. Well, I'm not going to trade my husband. Hi. Go to hell. You don't even know me. You don't know anything about us. I started to move, but Jessica put her hand on my wrist. However, it was not a grasping, but only a light touch. Please stop. Just listen to me. When your group entered, there were 6 of you. The one with the ring had already left with the guy, to the applause of the rest of the group. The 2 remaining girls, including you, are also wearing rings. 3 are not. If I had to guess, one of them is married and hid the ring, and 1 or 2 others are divorced. I froze in place. What is this? Are you a detective? Following us? Who the hell? No, I'm just a woman, like I said, who's been where you are. I've had friends like yours too, and I've seen bands like yours dozens of times over the years. Perhaps you haven't cheated yet. In fact, I bet not, she waved her hand. By the way you keep looking at your ring. The look on your face when your married friends are talking, by how rowdy the group gets, I'm guessing how they plan to get laid, or how hubby will never be the wiser. I looked away, feeling uncomfortable. Like I said, honey, I'm not judging. Not really. Without looking back, I said, not really. What's that supposed to mean? Everyone has a story. Some are good, some are bad, but at the moment, it can be hard to tell who is who. She moved slightly so that she was completely in my field of vision. I'm trying to help you, Charlotte. Snorting, I asked, how can you help me? Tell me not to cheat. Cynthia said, your friend who's married, the one who's such a spendthrift and a cheater. Yes, she claimed that it didn't hurt their relationship in any way. She believes that what he doesn't know won't hurt him, and... My words were interrupted by Jessica's loud, mocking laugh. Oh, honey, that's exactly true. But I'll tell you, her husband will definitely find out. Your friend, the divorcee, what was her name? Betty. I said it almost in a whisper, but then I collected myself. But she understands what she did, she said. She knows what she did wrong, and she can prevent either of you from getting caught, and everything will be fine for her in the end, right? I just kept quiet. Like I said, Charlotte, I've seen a lot of groups like yours, and although I haven't always seen the results, I know what they're doing and what they're going to make you do. Eventually, one of you will be caught, and everyone else. 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead, and there are 6 of you. That's not even considering that one of them may be hoping that you fail and your husband fails with you. Then she can choose him again. Or maybe he's already cheating on you, and this is his revenge. I growled, Richard is not like that. In a soothing tone, she asked, Are you? I don't. Her hand gently squeezed my wrist. People change for many reasons, Charlotte. Boredom, anger, revenge, unhappiness. Because they want to leave, because they want to be caught, because they think they need a thrill. Why are you going to do this? No, Jessica shook her head. I'm guessing how long does it take you to go with your friends to the dance? Maybe an hour. Have you already cheated on your husband? I looked down at my feet. I know. We were just dancing too close when I was a little drunk. One of them tried to kiss me. I stopped him. It was all, no exaggeration. Her finger lifted my chin. But you were going to do it tonight. Maybe. This, Cynthia and Betty, made it seem like something normal, like it was just another, like it didn't matter to us, like going to the spa or going to the gym, except that his ego wouldn't stand it if. Jessica added to my thoughts. If he really cared about you, he would let you do this. She sighed and added, idiots. Hello. Not you, Charlotte. Although, maybe. But you're not as stupid as them yet, at least. You haven't done something that can't be undone yet. You still have time, Jessica said with a smile. I couldn't help but joke, oh, so an exposed cheater is now trying to talk me out of breaking my vows? You got yours and it ruined your marriage. Now you're helping young women avoid the same fate. The smile on Jessica's face was almost devilish. Oh no, not at all. I mean, maybe, but I cheated on my husband hundreds of times in 23 years of marriage. I probably would still be doing it if my beloved Donald hadn't died, and I would never didn't get caught. Here's how I can help you, Charlotte. If you want to cheat, I'll teach you everything I know. And if you follow my advice, you'll never get caught unless you're too unlucky. What? Jessica took her purse from the stool. There's a 24-hour diner across the street. I want to get some coffee and maybe a snack. If you'll join me, after you tell your friends you'll be back in about an hour, I'll tell you my story, and you'll find out everything that you need to successfully conduct such businesses, no matter how much you want. Are you serious? Oh, I'm serious. A wizard never reveals his tricks, but perhaps it's time for me to take on an apprentice, she said, seeing my doubts. Look, I'm not asking you to get in the car with me. We're just going out to a public place to drink coffee, share some fries that I'll pay for, and talk. And then when we're done, you can do with what you learn, whatever you want. Worst case scenario, you'll just tell your friends about the strange woman you met tonight, she added with a slight grin. I trailed off. Jessica turned to leave. But I'll go anyway. This place is so deserted early on, and your friend left with the only guy I had my eye on. If you join, great. If not, well, I'll come anyway. Just a little longer I'm going to waste time walking up the stairs because I'm damn sure I'm going to let the basket of fries go all the way. And with these words, she left. What the hell just happened? On the one hand, she was right. Everything the girls did was risky. Even I realized this. Perhaps I needed someone who actually understood this to make me listen to what I was already telling myself. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to cheat. My behavior over the past couple of weeks has been the opposite. I really loved Richard very much. My growing desire to be with other guys didn't change that, at least for me. After all, I'm sure he fantasized about other women, and I didn't go beyond the fantasy. Anyway, that's what Cynthia and Betty and the others told me, even though deep down I knew I'd be pissed as hell if I caught Richard doing the same thing I've done to other men. But if I decide to go for it, why wouldn't I want to be successful at it? If Jessica was telling the truth, and over the course of 2 decades, Hundreds of men found themselves in her arms without her husband noticing. Why shouldn't I listen to her words? And if she was lying, as she said, it could still make a funny story. I announced to the girls that I was going to go for a walk outside before leaving and would be back soon. They were already intoxicated, so Cynthia simply screamed, "You better come back before we leave without you and get all the good guys." They then plunged back into the group game of marry/love/kill, this time discussing the guys from the office. I realized that I definitely needed to hear other opinions before one of these idiots fired me or divorced me. The diner was one of those places where the neon letters "Diner" glowed above the entrance without any indication of the actual name. It seemed like it could have existed at any time since the 40s, and this was reflected in its decor. It was like it was plucked from another era. All the items, tables, chairs, bar, etc., seemed cheap, but incredibly durable. After a night of dancing, the girls and I would often find ourselves here, those of us who hadn't picked up any guys. The food was nothing special, but it was cheap, greasy, and plentiful. When I walked in, Jessica was looking into the distance, holding a mug. When I approached the table, she blinked in confusion and smiled widely. "Hey, I didn't know if you were coming or not. Glad you're here." I sat down in the office opposite her. Maybe I should have checked my schedule, but I think it would be more interesting than listening to Cynthia and the rest of the girls spin around in this whirlwind all evening. She giggled. "Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard." I shrugged. "Perhaps, but if you have something interesting to tell me, then why not?" Jessica nodded, thinking. "I can try, but I'm sorry. Can you share some information about yourself first? Not about your whole life, just what you do, how long you've been married, etc. I want to make sure that what I can tell you, it will be interesting and useful for you. I don't want to waste our time." "I see. So I'm 27. My husband and I met towards the end of my first year in college. I was studying history, but then I decided I didn't want to become a teacher, so now I work as an administrative assistant. Richard and I started dating in the beginning of our senior year, and now we have been married for 5 years. Are you happy in this marriage, in general?" I nodded slowly. Yes, I think so. I have no serious complaints. By and large, he makes me happy. Although, of course, I would like him to clean up after himself and not leave socks on the floor by the bed every night, but he apparently doesn't like me watching so much reality TV. Jessica smiled. "That's fair enough. What about your intimate life?" I felt a little uneasy. "Well, in general, everything is fine." "Fine?" She raised an eyebrow. "Yes, mostly everything is good, although not as great as at the beginning. But overall," I smiled, "he's still doing a good job, and he tells me I'm the best of all the women, which is nice." Are you the best thing he's ever tasted?" "Well, something like that. Yes, now, or maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago. At first I had to teach him what I liked, but he picked it up quickly. Once he got the hang of it, everything has become good. But, as I said, lately, a little worse." There's that damn raised eyebrow again. No, I wouldn't say that far. I was looking for the right word. I'm thinking comfortable, maybe. I love it, and it's still good, but I can't remember when this is the last time we tried something new in bed. Jessica nodded wisely. "I see. No serious problems. A happy marriage is already a good thing. But why are you thinking about cheating on Richard?" Luckily, before I could respond, the waitress placed the fries in front of me and poured me a cup of coffee. I took this moment to think about how to phrase my answer. I didn't come here to attack her. I came here to listen to her story. No, yes, expose myself to temptation, but never. I don't want to cheat on Richard. I don't plan to date anyone else. I crave excitement. They poured hot potatoes into my mouth, and I hurriedly washed down some water when I realized it was too hot. "Oh, about the solo life." She took a sip of coffee, and her lipstick left a pale mark on the edge of the cup. "Oh, yes," I fanned my mouth. "Yes, to be probably free and desirable. It's not that I want to betray Richard, but when we started talking about kids and buying a house, and I sighed. I was just wondering if it was too early to get married. Should I play this game longer?" Do you want to see if there is anyone better? No. I confidently dipped the next piece of fries into the ketchup and let it cool this time. No, I love him. I really do. He's such a good guy, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. And I'm damn sure I don't want to hurt him. But I don't know, I just feel, I thought, chewing potatoes soaked in ketchup. Jessica waited for me to finish. I would like to somehow close this chapter in our marriage and get back to him, you know. Without hurting Richard and not. If there was a way to do it without cheating, that would be ideal. I would try my best, though somehow, but I shrugged. Her gaze pierced me. But the temptation to change is becoming stronger, especially with those with whom you communicate. Yes, I hate to admit it, but yes. I don't want to, but I understand. I know I'm still attractive. There were many moments in the club when I could have moved on with the guys, but I don't. My gaze fell on my hands, and I like that feeling of being wanted, so I come back, but I worry that eventually I'll end up not being attractive enough. She smiled good-naturedly and put her hand on mine. I understand. Trust me, I understand, and I think I can help you. My head shot up. Cheat. I'm not sure if I. Jessica stroked my hand and removed hers again, leaning on the back of the chair. Not necessarily. I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you why I did it and how I did it. And if you want details, I'll stay here and talk to you as long as you need. It's rare that I have the opportunity to open up to anyone. And you seem like an ideal interlocutor. She laughed when she saw my expression. I'm not saying that you're going to cheat, or that you have the mark of the beast, or anything like that you're afraid of. She took a piece of French fries and continued talking. How did she manage to talk with her mouth full so gracefully? You are young, beautiful, and smart enough to understand that what you are doing now is not working. I mean everything that's going on in your marriage and your friendship with Cynthia, right, and Betty? I nodded. You feel a urge that you can't quite pin down, and it's leading you in a direction you may or may not want to go. And Jessica sighed, a little sad. To be honest, you don't have kids and your marriage didn't last long. You have more power to change things than you think. I don't want to sound gloomy, but leaving a marriage is possible. One that, well, I don't think so. Enough courage. One more piece and a little brighter thoughts. But let's not talk about that for now. Do you still want to hear my story? I nodded. It can't hurt to listen, right? Yes. Yes, I know. The distinguished elderly lady beamed at me with her infectious smile. I was sure that a real fairy tale awaited me. Then I'll start from the beginning. Well, maybe a little later. You don't need to know about my early days, except that my home life was pretty, ordinary. Average, mostly. Middle class, middle America, ordinary happiness. If my parents had 2.5 children, they probably would have stayed that way. But I wasn't an ordinary girl. I grew from a stupid, big-headed child into a clumsy, ugly duckling. Although she was always smart, probably too smart for her own good. I was a bookish, sarcastic little girl. Then, in high school, I changed. The ugly duckling turned into a swan, and it wasn't just my appearance, although puberty made its own adjustments. No, it was my intelligence that allowed me to truly blossom. An expensive gift is just a nice item without proper packaging, but packaged correctly. Presented only in alluring and seductive twinkling lights, hinting at the contents within. And this is where real desire comes in. Think about it. On Christmas Day, a child unwraps presents, plays with toys for a few hours, maybe a day or two, and then they are forgotten. But what happens to them a month later when they remain under the tree? How often do they shake, poke, try to guess by size, shape, and weight what is inside? A month of waiting, which turns into several hours of joy from opening gifts, and then, what's next? I nodded in agreement, but inside I was a little disappointed. So, you came up with your strategy, made yourself attractive, learned makeup and fashion. Is that true? She laughed. Yes, I understand. It may seem like a small thing, but you have to understand. Let me ask, have you always been this beautiful young woman sitting across from me? I felt the color rise to my cheeks. I'm not sure I could go that far, but I've never considered myself ugly. I may have had an awkward period, though. But you don't know what it's like to be invisible or even despised by your peers, and then suddenly become an object of desire for some and scorn for others. No, not really. Jessica eagerly put the hot dish into her mouth, enjoying not only the taste, but also her story. I really did that. And it was at that moment that I found my first and deepest love, to be desired. Being an object of desire has always been important to me. Intimacy is fun, but it's also like unwrapping a gift at Christmas. It's the climax. A burst of joy that outweighs everything else. I took a sip of water. I see, yes, I understand that, but that doesn't explain. Wait a little, my young friend. I'm just setting the stage, she grinned. I'll build a wish if you want. So I started dating in high school, lost my virginity at prom, after half a dozen of the hottest guys in school asked me to, and then burst into tears. College was the first time I tried to be completely monogamous. Jessica sighed, her energy that had animated her seeming to disappear as the air left her lips. Then I offended some good guys. She ruined her reputation. I know there was one guy who really loved me, and I loved him too. I mean, I truly loved him. But She reached for a glass of cola, as if suddenly lost in thought. That evening I saw for the first time how the showman's mask slipped from her. My husband was the love of my life, but I think Jeremy could have been if I hadn't treated him so badly. I didn't even, the old lady sighed bitterly. I didn't have those moments of deception back then. In fact, I wasn't very good at it. Jeremy didn't catch me, and he didn't need to. He just needed to open his eyes, and he didn't. Why did you betray him? Jessica lowered her gaze to the table. That's the question, isn't it? Why did I betray him, my husband, and all these wonderful men? When she met my gaze again, pain flashed in her eyes and her smile was strained, because I'm an addict. You mean bed addiction? She laughed. No, I'm not a sex addict. Although I've tried, Jessica sighed. I'm getting ahead of myself. Taking a deep breath, she continued. The nature of addiction is that you refuse to recognize it. No one wants to believe it, whether it's alcohol, food, drugs, or gambling. The excuses are different, but they are similar. It's just one drink is very close to we just danced. Non-addicts can drink beer or dance closely, and that's okay, but for an addict, it's the beginning of disaster. And then we make excuses when things go wrong. It's a hard day, so I drank a bottle of vodka. It's my birthday, so I can eat a lot of cake. Jessica's face twisted into a grimace. We're already on the verge of breaking up, and I haven't even told him. All these excuses for accidental actions are actually actions. She smiled brightly as she returned to the spotlight. I didn't realize at the time that it was an addiction. I thought I was just having fun. I was tormented by fluctuations between the desire to be alone and the certainty, the complete certainty, that this time everything would be different, that this time I had found the perfect guy, and all the previous ones were just childhood mistakes. However, in the end, I stopped pretending and realized that I had screwed up, although I did not yet realize it as an addiction, and decided that I was just pretending. I decided to be single until I was 28. Then the smile on Jessica's face was not just formal, it was sincere happiness. The present, when she spoke, her eyes sparkled. Then I met Donald. I was working as a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company, and I still work in that field, and he was a doctor. God, that man was amazing. His appeal wasn't just his looks, he was simply captivating. It was his presence, the kindness in his voice, his manner, his ability to be natural, smart, and humorous at the same time. He was probably the best lover I've ever had, or had from the very beginning. One of those who ranks at the top of the list of the best of all time. I was amazed by him like never before, even with Jeremy. I fell in love with him so quickly. That's why I pushed him away for so long. Despite his persistence, he tired me. But he didn't leave. Looking back, I understand that this is why I was able to convince myself that everything would be fine, that we can overcome all difficulties. No man, before or since, has ever given me as much attention as Donald, even when we were in a relationship, engaged, or even married. For the first time, I did not feel the need for anything else. Someone else was following me. But you cheated on him. but I cheated on him. She raised her glass, and the waitress came over to fill it. Although only a couple of years after we got married, he stopped following me like he used to. I don't blame him. It is impossible to maintain such intensity forever, and I loved him so much. I tried to hold out as long as I could, but I felt this little itch right there in the back of my head, and I couldn't scratch it. He kissed me, invited me to dinner or to dance, and it was as if. Jessica looked at the ceiling. Do you know what methadone is? This is for heroin addicts, right? To help them quit smoking. Right. It is a weak opioid that mimics some of the effects of heroin without being addictive or dangerous. It's effective, but she chuckled. You'd be surprised how many heroin addicts hate it, whether they're recovered or not. This is so close to what their body is telling them what it needs, but it is not enough. Once people stop taking methadone, unless they make some other major changes in their lives, there is a fairly high chance that they will relapse. Some people simply stay on it for the rest of their lives, replacing one addiction with another. In truth, this is what most recovering addicts do, replace one habit with another. This is one of the reasons why there are so many heavy smokers and coffee drinkers at AA meetings. Even with celebrities who have all the resources, this happens. Remember Johnny Cash. He completely immersed himself in religion. And Robert Downey Jr. became a fitness fanatic. Have you seen the movie Trainspotting? No? Great movie. It starred a very young Ewan McGregor. He and his friends, all former drug addicts from Edinburgh, are playing football or baseball, whatever, against another group of guys at the beginning of the film. And these guys really were former drug addicts who helped the writer in his research. Then they became football fans. When they left their addiction, they developed another obsession, but it didn't seem to kill them. I raised my hand. Sorry, but what are we talking about? I thought you were talking about. Jessica waved her hand. Yeah, I'm getting there. It's about how I cheated and how it got past me. But first of all, you need to understand why I did it. It affected how I did it. Do you understand? My face expressed complete misunderstanding. She sighed. So, methadone. Donald's addiction after our marriage was similar to my methadone for a couple of years. It was enough to keep me clean, but not as much as I wanted. Then it went away. And it was God, and in some ways, it was even worse. Another deep breath. It was a little less than 3 years into our marriage when I cheated on him for the first time. I was in a bar in another city, visiting an old friend, and suddenly strangers wanted me again, and I was free, and she shook her head. And it was like giving a recovered alcoholic a bottle of vodka. I danced and flirted, knowing exactly how bad an idea this was. This guy wanted me so bad, so much. I could almost feel it on him. I let him pursue me, knowing how dangerous it was, knowing how it would end, and hating myself while I did it. He groped me on the dance floor, and I let him. We found a dark corner. A few hours later, I returned to my hotel room, exhausted, tired, euphoric, and she frowned and sighed. And the feeling is the lowest I've ever had. I got into the shower, still in my dress, and cried under the water for probably an hour, wanting to die. Wanting to die before Donald met me. Jessica sat quietly for a moment, looking into her cup as if she could find the answers there. She didn't look up as she continued her story. I thought about telling him, but I knew my husband. It will kill him. He loved me so much even though I told him about my past. I didn't understand then the depth of my needs. I still thought I was just an asshole when I was younger, and that I had finally found someone who would turn me into an honest woman. Good, sad smile. And he did it. He really did it. It's just not good enough. She looked at me. When I returned, I fell into an affection for Donald, as I always did, because I loved him so much. It made everything easier. He didn't suspect anything, and I tried never to give him a reason to doubt me. Then I held back for a while. This went on for several months, but the desire returned. In the end, I had to leave for work, and Jessica shrugged. It was nice to think that I could be a good person, at least for a while. That I just made a mistake. This has been the case for most of my life. I traveled a lot for work, so whenever the urge arose, I found someone to meet with. Never with the same person twice. Hell, not even in the same bar twice if you could avoid it. Always use a condom and be very careful not to get caught. And I never did. Never. My doubts were evident in my voice. I'll admit, it was a little awkward. At first, I made the mistake of contacting an idiot who tried to seduce me while I was talking to my husband. I hung up, got rid of him, and then said that we were having communication problems at the hotel when I called Donald back. I always didn't like it when people talked bad about him, but after that, guys who didn't respect him were a no-go for me. She chuckled, seeing my expression. I didn't respect him more than, well, you know. It was always disrespectful. I realized that. I know he deserved a better wife. I just couldn't leave him. Jessica looked out the window. I think I was a relationship junkie. You keep talking about yourself as a drug addict. Honestly, I struggle to find words that wouldn't irritate her. Sounds like complete bullshit. Yes, I know. And when it comes to these things, that's often what happens. When I was trying to get cured, in the midst of all the changes, I went to an addiction group. You know, like AA, only for, she waved her hand. And while I found that I didn't quite fit the criteria, I also found that there were a lot of people there who. Let's just say they got there because someone caught them with someone they shouldn't have, and addiction became an effective ploy for them. But I know that I do have an addiction or compulsion, and I can prove it. For now, let me tell you the rest of my story. She took another bite of the potato, then frowned and pushed the basket towards me. I need to stop. A sudden laugh escaped her lips, says the drug addict. Jessica leaned forward. So that was one time I almost got caught, and then there was a moment. She swallowed. And then there was this incident where I was raped by some bastard. My God. The elderly woman shrugged. It was terrible, and I'm not making excuses for this guy. If I saw him today, I would shoot that bastard. Because of him, I got my concealed carry license. But I went to bars, invited strange people back to my room. In the end, I ran into someone who didn't want to accept it. I tried to touch her hand. She smiled and moved away. It was so long ago, long before children, about 20 years ago, she began. I remember how worried I was, knowing that I would have to hide all the evidence from Donald and keep him at a distance until I could get tested. My husband, when I had a yeast infection, he just checked on me, wanted to make sure everything was okay. But thanks to the deadline, I had time to get tested for almost everything. We stayed out of trouble. I had to get tested tests like a professional actress, but it was necessary. Suddenly, a thought arose. You were talking about your children. Is there a possibility? No. Jessica's voice sounded louder than she obviously intended, and several people looked at us. It fell again. No. No, there's no chance of that. When we decided to have kids, I ended the trip just before we wanted to start, and then stopped taking the pills when I got back. Thank God Donald was damn courageous, and it only took us a month each time. She bit her lip. I was worried, though. I knew about math. The kids, when they were born and all that, were supposed to belong to Donald. But I was paranoid about it. I would absolutely have to confess if one of them hadn't. It was him. I couldn't do this to him. So I tested as part of a work-related genetic testing program, which was in no way work-related. Luckily, the paranoia was just paranoia and everything was right. Did you cheat while you were pregnant? Nope. There was false cheerfulness in this word. Donald adored me very much at the time, and that made the chase easier. She grinned. Her dreamy smile, distant and warm, was a clear sign that she was immersed in pleasant memories. It was such a wonderful time when I was pregnant, and then when the kids were so little. I don't know why, but there's something about kids. Maybe it was because they were tired, or maybe because they constantly needed me, but it was an even stronger attachment than the love for Donald. After the birth of my eldest son, I thought for a while that. I don't know if it was the realization that there was something bigger than just me or my marriage that finally made me a better person, made me a worthy person. Jessica was silent for a moment, staring at her almost empty cup. Her voice wavered slightly as she spoke again. But that's not true. She met my gaze, and in her eyes there was no longer that insincere smile that hid the pain. I felt the itch return when my son went to kindergarten, and although it went away after the birth of my daughter, that was all. For 6 years of my 20-year marriage, I was a faithful wife. But what else? She shook her head. You said you tried to stop. She nodded, took a deep breath, and tried to tighten the mask. Yes, I tried a bunch of things. Therapy, of course. Counseling for intimate addiction. Religion. Athletics. God, that was a mistake. Have you seen how gymnasts look at even a moderately attractive woman? I even tried to gain weight for a while, hoping that if I was less desirable, I would be pursued less. I thought maybe it was a supply issue rather than a demand issue. It wasn't. I was just pursued by less interesting men, so I was unsatisfied in another way. I snorted at this. I couldn't do anything about it. This little bit of fun seemed to lift her spirits. Anyway, I decided something maybe 10 years into my marriage. First, it was an addiction, even if there was no entry for it in the DSM. This is true for many disorders for a variety of reasons. Secondly, I couldn't control it, or at least I couldn't find a way to control it. And third, I needed to find a way to not let it ruin my life. I started reading about harm reduction as a strategy. That is, do not try to abruptly give up the addiction, but limit the impact of the addiction. I saw a news article I remember about a woman who was a successful business owner and mother, but lived with a heroin addiction for over 20 years. She managed to cope with her high, and the only reason she got caught was because she accidentally caught drug dealers while meeting her dealer. She grinned. Not exactly a hero for the ages, but I figured if she could do it for decades, then I could too. And I did it. Donald never found out. I don't think he even suspected. I was so careful. You had, I don't know, some kind of ending. Like, what if you were still like this when you retired and couldn't travel as much? Not really. I just kept dancing and hoped the music never stopped. I had a distant hope that menopause might change my brain chemistry enough to cure me, but it didn't. Brain chemistry. There is a reason why for almost everything, smoking, heroin, alcohol, etc., the success rate among people who quit smoking is about 5%. It's not that people don't want to quit smoking, it's that they can. T. She raised an eyebrow at my doubtful expression. You do not trust me. No, that's not the point. Jessica nodded to someone on the other side of the diner and said quietly, this guy probably weighs 400, maybe 500 pounds. Do you think he wants this? Or does he not know how to lose weight? I guarantee you he knows more about diet than you or I will ever know. And he eats a piece of pie, which I doubt he even likes. He sits alone in a diner and eats food he doesn't even want to cope with the hunger he can't understand and doesn't want. Not real hunger, not hunger born of hunger, but because some small trickle of molecules in his brain is not enough for him to quit. This is everyone who is trying to quit smoking, drinking, or injecting drugs. Or at least I am. Was? She looked out the diner window again, her eyes watering. After Donald died, I really went off the rails for a while. Without him in my life, the itching became much worse. I didn't realize how much his love and devotion helped me just function like a normal person. For a month after his funeral, I sat in a bar and waited to be harassed. And every night for the next, 6 months, I brought someone new with me. Sometimes more than one. But never in our bed. She sniffled and wiped her eyes. I couldn't do it. It was still our bed. Even when he wasn't there, I couldn't do it. I allowed myself to act in other ways. I stopped taking care of my health like I should. I started drinking more, being careless about safe relationships. All these self-destructive behaviors. I wanted to die and be with him again. Finally, however, a friend persuaded me to go to the doctor. In fact, to several. Prescribed a drug that received FDA approval several years ago called semaglutide. Have you heard of him? Yes, is this an injection? And it causes weight loss, right? And it happened. My weight is back under control, and I am out of the diabetes danger zone. She took a sip of coffee. Oh, and it also cured my addiction. What? Yeah, I didn't realize it at first. I mean, it didn't work right away. It took a few weeks to really start working, but even after the first injection, the itching was less. And after those first couple of weeks, it just went away. My need remained, but I didn't feel the insane hunger that had possessed me before. At first, I put it down to my friend's intervention, dealing with Donald's death, the treatments, and everything. But when I finally got a clean bill of health from the doctor and stopped the injections, oh my God, she sighed. I found myself back there, getting as naughty as ever. What have you done? Like I said, I work in pharmaceutical sales. I know all the tricks to get cheap drugs and simple prescriptions, so I started doing it all myself as soon as I realized what happened. And like before, the itching went away. A couple of months later, I started seeing information in industry journals about how semaglutide reduced all sorts of addictive and compulsive behaviors among the groups tested. Alcohol and tobacco consumption, binge eating, even nail biting. Damn it. Her cheeks were shining with tears. Do you have any idea how painful this is? My love for my husband was not enough. My love for children was almost irrelevant. Hell, even my own sense of self-preservation didn't help. No, I needed help. A weekly dose of medicine to make me close my legs. And it was already too late. My Donald is gone, and I will never see him again. I almost quit this damn medicine. I wanted to die. I really wanted it. During death by debauchery. It would be terrible to see that on a death certificate. She shook her head. I couldn't do this to my children. They had already lost one parent, and then my first grandchild was born. I wasn't the wife my husband deserved, and I even felt like, but I was going to be the best damn grandma the world had ever seen. I laughed at this, and so did she, but only for a moment. Then she became deadly serious. Here's my story. If you want, I can tell you how to cheat on your husband. It's trivial to do. Any idiot can do it. It's not that hard to avoid getting caught, especially if you're only going to do it once. Go somewhere else. Hang out at a bar that's not your hotel bar. Take them to a seedy motel that pays by the hour, and make love. If you're going to keep this up, get a job that requires you to travel a lot. Follow the same rules I just said, but also get a second phone. Be sure to keep your money on a separate credit card that your husband will never see. Be ready to lie to his face always. Always be prepared. And always use condoms. And don't forget about a gun like I have in case someone tries to rape you. Never rely on anyone. Create a second life that isolates you from the people you love. Avoid true friendship. Never get drunk unless you're alone, because God knows what you can tell. There's more to come, but you get the idea, right? I nodded, feeling slightly nauseous. Yes. Once a traitor, always a traitor is half nonsense, half true. Do you think this applies to you? I don't know, I sighed. What should I do? I mean, what should I do with my friends and Richard and everything? She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I cannot tell you. Clearly something is wrong, and you need to work it out with him. Go to counseling, go on a trip, buy whips and chains. I was laughing. But whatever you do, throw those damn friends of yours under the bus, at least with him. What you tell him is up to you, although I think you should be completely honest, but blame them. I guarantee he would rather blame them for this than believe that you came to this alone. Then stay away from them if you have to. I nodded. Yes, Oak. You're right. Thank you. Please, Charlotte, and good luck. Jessica stood up, smiling, and threw a 20 on the table. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to the bar, fix my makeup, and see if the food has gotten any better since we left. Months have passed, and I still have needs. Laughing, she turned and walked out the door, then waved at the window as she passed. I lingered for a while longer, snacking on cold French fries and thinking, Jesus, how close was I to becoming Jessica? I'm not a fraud. I love my husband. What was I even thinking? Soon, I got up and almost ran to my car. I needed to go home to my husband and confess everything. My eyes blurred with tears as I drove, crying for myself and for that beautiful but broken woman who saved me from myself and from so-called friends who were ready to betray me. At home, Richard jumped out of his chair when he saw my condition. How could I think that I would hurt him? Or both of us? He picked me up and listened to my incomprehensible story about what I had done a little, and about the old woman who intervened. His face became increasingly serious, but when he finally spoke, his first words were, "I love you. Thank you for telling me. I'm angry, but we'll get through this together." I sobbed on his shoulder as he carried me to our bed. We lay in our arms like the first time we fell in love, alternating between tender caresses and crazy, desperate passion. I needed him. I needed him more than anything, and he gave me the same passion. Neither of us will forget this again. Then, while the love of my life slept next to me, I lay sleepless. I'm not a believer, but that night I needed to believe that there was a reason for Jessica's troubles. I needed someone to thank because her voice in that bar saved my marriage. I silently prayed for her, thanking God for sending her to me. I asked him to take care of her and her family, ending with asking him to spare her when the time came. May we all receive mercy that we do not deserve. I received mine that evening. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.